That didn't work. Didn't work.
Better next time.
We could do it again.
Good.
You want to do it again?
Yeah,
Let's
here.
do it again.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Look at that.
Yeah, how easy that was.
Learned that we can clap together.
I already
Good
hate
times,
this
good
episode.
Me too. Me too.
So I am ready when you are, CJ. I didn't know if do you, Phil, want to do your regular outro, and CJ, do you want to do your regular outro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
I
good.
guess so.
I'll do my regular outro too. Thanks for asking, Rich.
Oh, and remember, we got to record an after show.
Sure.
So let's
I'm
leave-
excited for that because see, I'm unfortunately not the right class of Patreon to be able to get the access.
Ah.
So this is all new for me. You know, some of us can't
Huh.
get to that level that you
During the
demand
class war.
from your listeners.
So
you know?
what we
Why-
should do is we should do a quiz that that the other two have already done, and it'll just be Rich trying.
What, CJ?
Yeah.
Why did you allow this poor person on our show?
This non-patron.
This seems wrong.
He claims it's his favorite show on the internet, but
Claims. Yeah. I just don't see the money
Not-
where the
not
mouth
seeing
is.
it.
Yeah.
Not
yeah.
Actually,
seeing
to
it.
be completely honest, I don't actually know exactly where to go to raise the level. It just automatically pays every week, and like to do the 5 seconds of research is that's a lot. You know,
Just
That's a
I'll-
lot.
yeah.
I'm gonna DM you my address. You just send me a check. Okay. I'll make sure it gets
Just read your credit card number aloud on.
Sure. Okay.
Just
yeah,
do that.
I can do
make it out to cash.
that.
Negative 5,000 to. Oh wait, no, that's the balance, not the.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Whenever
Are we
you're ready.
Okay, great.
Is this it?
Are we live on the YouTubes and the
We're
Googles
live.
and such?
We're
Hold
live.
on, I'm
All
bringing
right.
up. There we go. All right, bringing up
22 viewers.
the feed right there.
Oh yeah. How do I look at that? Is that somewhere in the group chat, or is that? Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Sure.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, hello and welcome to episode 600. 600 of the Player One podcast. I am your guest host, Rich Grisham, well, let's face it, a Player One super fan who's barged his way into your regularly scheduled episode. Yeah, everyone hates those, but here we are anyway. And these guys are too nice to say, no, please go away. We don't want you around anymore. 600 episodes. That is an astounding accomplishment in any medium, but in the here today, gone tomorrow world of video game podcast, it is a commitment unlike almost any that we've ever seen or heard. Sure, there have been more than a few changes since the original episodes in October of 2006. Yes, that's right. October of 2006, before anyone here had children or anything close to the crushing responsibilities now facing us every day. But in some ways, the show retains much of the reason why we all started listening to it in the first place. It's friends chatting about video games, talking simultaneously about how and why they love them so much, while acknowledging so much of the absurdity that encompasses the industry on a daily basis. Today, I'll be spending some time chatting with, well, the two founding members of the show and the one longtime hanger-on. So without further ado, let's get to it. Up first, we have a man who always wanted to be a pirate, and now he can. A man who never met a 4th chair he couldn't make go away. A man who Matthew Sweet once referred to as my biggest fan. A man who used to allow the other members of the show to serve as hosts until he just couldn't take it anymore. The one and true host of the Player One podcast, Mr. Chris Johnston. Welcome, CJ. How are you, sir?
I am doing well. Thank you, Rich, for hosting this 600th episode spectacular.
Yes. You are very welcome.
I don't let these guys host anymore, but I'll let you host because you're much better than these two.
What are you wearing?
How much is
nothing.
Nintendo paying you to wear that Switch hat right now, CJ?
$0.
Is this ad revenue that we don't know about?
CJ's not only a whore, he's a cheap whore.
What can I
Yeah.
say? I'm perfect for Switch. See?
Yeah. CJ's better on Switch.
Yeah.
I'm much better on Switch.
Yeah.
Up next, we have a man who knows a thing or two about gear ratios and downforce, but is barred from talking about it on the show. A man who somehow dislikes the only good Lego game ever made while extolling the virtues of all the terrible ones. a man who never met a loot box he didn't love, a man who has been driven by CJ to abjectly hate Nintendo, the token Canadian Mr. Greg Seward. Greg, how are you, sir?
All of that was true. I'm not good, Rich. I'm not good. My team lost last night. I'm not good.
Yeah, it's only 3-2. The Penguins are going to win the series. You know that. I know that. Every NHL fan knows that.
Okay, good. I'm glad you said it and not me.
Thus ends the sports talk for the episode, by the way.
That was it.
Finally, we have the newest member of the Player One podcast.
Yes.
A man who in many ways is still proving himself to original listeners who refuse to accept his place in the Player One canon.
And
a man who divested himself of a rare and valuable retro video game collection only to replace it with large useless objects that will retain zero value in 60 days. A man who is convinced that Crackdown 3 will not only be a real thing but will also be good. Our favorite fake Player One podcaster, Mr. Phil Theobald. Phil, how are you, sir?
I'm cautiously optimistic about Crackdown 3, first of all. And if you're somehow saying that this giant Thanos mitt sitting on a shelf here, it may not retain its cash value, but when I am wearing it to my wife's funeral, when I'm wearing it to my son's graduation from college, to his wedding day, it will prove its worth. Don't worry.
He's wearing it in the trailer where he lives alone when he's 65.
Yes.
I mean, how do you think he got his job?
Surrounded by all his crap.
He wore the Infinity Gauntlet, right?
That's right. So it works. Pikachu, I don't feel so good.
Well, on behalf of all of us in the Player One community, guys, thank you for being here for 600 episodes. You know, if you stacked up 600 episodes on top of each other, you could spell baldness from Halifax to Atlanta. Did you know that? That is a true fact.
I did not know that.
Yes, true statement.
Wow.
So, all right, CJ, we'll start with you. Would October 2006 you be surprised or not at how your current video game tastes center around being a 16th century pirate and a hockey mask wielding axe murderer?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
CJ's got a wardrobe change happening.
yeah.
I don't know what you're talking
Is
about.
that a new shirt too?
Michael Stipe.
No, what
award scenario.
Oh my
This is,
goodness.
wearing
Wow.
the shirt. See,
Wearing
represents.
your Player One colors.
That's right.
You know, we got a notice in our YouTube chat that when you were wearing the Switch hat, you know, all the YouTube viewers saw was just you pulling out a red hat and wearing it.
Hat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so people thought you were making podcasts great again.
We've already done that.
You and your
years ago.
you and your fellow classmate Kanye West. You'd been chatting with him again.
That's true.
Yeah.
Waiting for 600 episodes to put it all on the table like that. So very gutsy. Very gutsy.
600 episodes. Yeah, I don't imagine that 2006 me would have been into a Friday the 13th game as much as I am now, or being a pirate and sailing the seas. No.
You are. It's, to me, it seems like you're a very different type of video game player now than you were when the show first started. Is that accurate?
I think that's accurate. Yeah, I know people love to bash live service games. I kind of love them.
Me too.
Because
Me too.
At least for the ones that I'm into, like Overwatch, Sea of Thieves, Friday the 13th, these are games, and Splatoon, these are games that I love anyway, and getting more content for them and reasons to come back to them. Yeah, I just love that. And if growing up, you know, we all played Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario Brothers 2, whatever. If somebody said, here's more levels for that game you love, or here's another reason to go back to that game you love, I'd be all about that too. So I'm into it. This future of video games is great and bright.
Well, CJ, you jumped unabashedly headfirst into the digital future. You are the first person that I remember ever hearing, yes, digital future, me right here now. I'm going all digital, all day. This is 2, 3, 4 years ago. And it would seem that you are enjoying the digital future very much so.
I am, Rich, yes. And every All of the games that I purchase now are all digital. Yes, I even pre-purchase games, which sometimes blows up in my face if they happen to give me motion sickness. But I don't have any cartridges or Blu-rays with games on them really at all. No library, no physical library, except for
What's all that
stuff.
What's all that crap?
There's like 4 acres.
There's
of
no.
games.
Do not look back here.
To be clear, everything behind CJ is very old, and he just drags it with him everywhere he goes.
Most of it.
Nothing new.
To be doubly fair, everything that is CJ is very old. So
Also true.
Yeah.
I gotta say, CJ, you're swapping hats. That's I guess you're doing a bit for this episode where you're swapping hats every couple minutes. And
I have not done that.
You went from a Switch hat to an Xbox hat. Now you're at a PlayStation hat. That PlayStation hat looks cartoonishly large on your head.
Does it?
I mean, and you're not a small fellow. You're a big guy.
How about when I wear it like this?
Let's see.
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yeah, now you look
better.
Wow, this is, after
Do I look
600 episodes, this is exactly what we need to start speaking to the youth market.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
You look like a Twitch streamer now, CJ.
That's not what I was going to say, but sure, let's go with that.
Yeah. Say something
It's a
racist.
family show. No, I wasn't going to say that either.
No.
I'm not going to do that.
Well, we got to get we want to make your transition to Twitch streamer complete.
Influencer, I think, is the word you're looking for.
Yeah. Yes. There you go.
So, Greg, 11 years. Racing games have remained a stalwart of your rotation. You talk about them regularly, except Gran Turismo Sport. You haven't. Well, actually, no, you did mention that a couple weeks
last
ago,
week.
but has gotten very little love from you relative to the other ones. But hockey has noticeably disappeared from your what you've been playing segments for years. Greg, what will it take to get you playing the NHL series again?
I don't know.
We need to know. This is an important question.
Yeah, because I'm sure everyone at EA is listening. I don't know. I just the games were getting pretty samey for me a couple years ago, and started getting to the point that I was barely ever touching them. I was buying them every year, but barely ever playing them, and I just kind of finally questioned why I was spending more money on them every year. I don't know. I think it's going to need an overhaul. I couldn't tell you exactly what's wrong with them because it's been so long since I played them, but yeah, I'll try out the demo for the next one. Hopefully they keep doing that, but so far I've been living proof of why you don't want to do a demo for those games, because they always convince me not to buy the thing.
So over those 11 years, has your taste in video games changed a bit, do you think? Or if do you still go back to any of the older hockey games, or is just hockey just completely out of what you're playing? Because that was definitely not the case that long ago.
I mean, if we're talking strictly about sports games, I think really for me, it's actually has a lot to do also with transitioning to different jobs, because there was a time when I worked at a particular office where we had an NHL tournament every year, and I actually ran it. So I did play it a lot. And then that kind of fell apart. We all got laid off and the tournament stopped. But I mean, as a gamer in general, yeah, I'd say my taste has absolutely changed over the past 11 years. I play differently now than I did then. I don't have nearly as much time to put into it, and I don't marathon things like I used to. I don't put hours and hours and hours into anything anymore. So yeah, I'm very much I've definitely gotten past the point where I need to be playing whatever the newest thing is. Now I'm happier just sort of playing through and investing in games I'm enjoying and tossing games that I don't enjoy after an hour or so.
Phil, in 599 episodes, you've made exactly 724 references to Gianna Sisters, more than Dynasty Warriors, Crackdown, and Rogue Legacy combined. So the question is, 11 years later, is that still your number one go-to franchise if you had to pick, or if not, what would it be?
Gosh, I mean, there's a new Bubsy game out, and it's from the makers of the recent Gianna Sisters. So I think my allegiances have taken a hard swerve towards the Bobcat. And can you blame me?
It's a fair point. Fair point.
Climbed back to the top of the yarn ball.
He certainly did. Hey, CJ's got a Metroid Prime hat on now.
What?
This is great.
I don't understand.
This is
I haven't worn a hat the entire episode.
I haven't. Have you ever watched the live stream? I don't wear hats on it.
in fact, I never even gave you my coat.
When you've got that amazing hair, you shouldn't wear a hat, right? You can't cover that up.
Oh, there you go.
Don't hide your light under a bushel, CJ. There you go. Let it fly free.
So, Phil, how would you say your tastes have changed or stayed the same over 11 years and 600 episodes?
I have gotten to the point where I no longer like playing video games that last more than, let's say, an hour and a half. Because I have a kid, and I have a wife, and I have a job, and I have things to do. So these sprawling 50-hour adventure games, I can't. I don't have time to deal with that right now.
Can you play God of War then?
Yeah,
not going to play God of War.
I don't know. Maybe I'll play like 90 minutes of it.
Can you play a game for 3 or 4 months though? Like, could you just say, all right, I'm going to play, Zelda or God of War or something, and just say, this is the one, even if it's only a couple hours a week? Could you do that? Or do you just sort of not, do you have to sort of change it up to have fun?
Something else comes out, and I want to play that. And it's a terrible system. It's a terrible, terrible system. I do not recommend it for anyone. And I will say that I'm wrong in doing it, but here we are. What are you going to do? Arrest me?
And he stares into the camera.
Not a crime. You can't hurt me. You're not even here. You're on the internet. You're on a screen, man. Don't threaten me. Don't come on my show and threaten me on our 600th anniversary spectacular.
CJ's show.
Who do you? Well,
I suppose
that guy can't even figure out what kind of hat he wants to wear. Go get another one, CJ. Take up another one here.
He went and found all his hats.
He did. Oh, hey, he's it.
What's that, Cappy?
This is amazing radio, by the way.
PlayStation beanie now, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know, Rich.
It's not a beanie, that's a toque.
It's a toque.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, Rich. I just,
There haven't been any Mega Man games out recently.
So we got a couple collections coming this summer.
That's true.
We got 11 coming later this year. So,
Well, Phil, you mentioned it, right? The biggest change for everyone now is kids, and
yes.
we all play games with our kids, and that's also completely different. I think it was than it was with our parents, right? Because I know my parents couldn't care less about games and didn't understand why I loved them, and I'm pretty sure you three have similar. At least I know of one shouting match between Phil and his mom about a poorly gotten birthday present.
Shouting match is perhaps overselling it.
I call it a tantrum, really.
It was that is actually more accurate. My mother was the picture of calm. She was very kind and gentle.
My mother
and caring.
turned to my father and said, "This is your fault.
Yeah,
he's like this because of you."
So they're no longer together.
But we all play games with our kids, and we all talk about it on the show. But I mean, what does that mean to you? Like, do you sort of look at video games differently because you know that you would potentially play games with the kids? I know I play a lot of games with my son that I wouldn't play otherwise. CJ, you talk a lot about gaming with your daughter. What does just gaming and with your kid mean to you now, and where does it sort of sit in how you overall look at how you spend your time playing video games?
It means another playthrough of Knack. Really. constant Knack. I think my daughter is an internet troll, actually, and she's just getting me to play Knack for fun. No, it's been great. I have noticed though, like whenever I hook up something like the NES Classic or the Super NES Classic, or like load up any of those types of games to try to get her interested in that, because Super Mario Brothers would be an easy enough game for a 6-year-old to get into, I think, but there's no tutorial. It's a very sort of, there's an enemy right there, and the failure cost is such that she doesn't want to continue with those games. Whereas now, there's a lot of guidance. It's very easy. You have health system that she just finds more enjoyable. So most of the time we play Zoo Tycoon, and she just throws animals in cages, and we don't ever feed them. They're probably dying.
That's awful.
But it's fun. It's fun to torture my daughter by playing Sea of Thieves when she wants to play something else. She'll watch me for like 10 minutes and then leave. Yeah.
CJ.
But as she plays Dragon Quest Monsters, and she plays on my save, but in the creative mode, Dragon Quest Builders. Yeah, she'll play in the creative mode, and I tried to get her into Minecraft, and she just wasn't into that. So I know that she's really my daughter. But yeah, it's good. Now I just have to get her to play Rock Band, and everything will be great.
Greg, you have multiple kids, and they're different. They all like different kinds of games too. So, like, how do you balance again with in the overall how you get to play video games? Right, you already have limited time, and then when you factor your kids in, so with their different tastes, how does that work in the Seward household these days?
I don't play as many games with them as I'd like, mostly because some of the games they're most interested in don't have multiplayer, like couch multiplayer. But no, I mean, it definitely, like, that's one of the things that I was super excited about with Labo. Obviously, I never even would have considered buying that if it wasn't for the kids. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm actually kind of really enjoying watching to see what kind of gamers they're becoming, what they're into. My oldest really likes, I forget what it's called. It's not Minecraft, but it's that other one that looks awful.
Roblox.
Thank you, Roblox. And she really loves it. She plays with a friend of hers all the time, and they do all the different mods, and I sit and watch them play, and they're
called obbies.
There you go. I see what she gets out of it. I don't get anything out of it, but I get to watch her play, which is great. And my son is really gotten into games like Fortnite and Overwatch, which, again, not games that I would play, not games I'm really interested, but I love to watch him. And for me, really, I love it because even though we're not playing the same games, it's a hobby we share. And I love that they can come be excited to talk to me and be excited about the games that they're excited about, and I at least understand the language they're speaking, and I can relate, and they know that I'm excited about what they're saying. So it's not so much that we're playing together, but it's just great that we have similar interests. I think it's super important. It's for me and for them that we can sort of get excited about the same types of things.
It's funny. My son is a Nintendo kid through and through. He loves Nintendo, loves the Switch, loves the Wii U. We're playing that. We were even playing today. I put up a new 4K TV a few months ago, and that has allowed an older TV to be in the same room, have the Wii U connected to it, because all the other ones are connected to the other one. So I've actually started playing that more often. And just today we were playing New Super Mario Bros. U with the boost mode. So I would be on the tablet and he would be on the Wii mode.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And we give each other 3 lives, and after 3, then we got to switch. So one can boost and one the other. Incredible fun. So such a Nintendo thing. And I wouldn't have ever thought 6-7 years later to go play that. But he's just a Nintendo guy. He's always on the Nintendo thing, which is certainly in some ways like me, and other ways different than me, because I'm much more into sports video games, for example. He could care less. Much more into racing games. They're okay.
Yeah, like my kids won't touch any of those.
Right. So, Phil, question for you is, in what ways Finn the similar type of video game player as you, and in what ways is he very different than you in his tastes or how he likes to play?
Well, I started him on Atari 2600, which is what I started on, because I wanted him to have a real perspective of the industry and understand how games as a medium have grown over the years. So he's played a lot regularly. Played a lot of that. We moved on to Intellivision, ColecoVision. He's just starting to dip his toes into the NES now. Now that he fully understands
Fairchild Channel F.
Yeah. Well, what am I, a monster?
Sometimes I wonder.
Well, now Finn doesn't play a ton of games. Actually, he likes watching me play games.
So he's more of a Twitch guy than
exactly. Yeah. He's on Twitch all the time watching his favorite. His favorite streamers.
Seems like a good idea for a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
He's 6. He's
never mind.
He's No, he I mean, obviously he's not on the internet watching crap like that, but he every now and again he'll want to play just simple games. Like he'll get on like PBS Kids and play some of the little flash games on there he gets into. And he'll ask me to play something like a Mario game or something like that, and he'll sit and watch me play, but he has not expressed a ton of interest in sitting down and playing a console game by himself. He'll a couple times he'll try something here or there and then just kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, now you play, Daddy, just because he wants to see the game progress more than actually try to do it himself. So
interesting.
He's lazy. He's a lazy child.
A lot of work to do with that kid.
Yeah.
Aren't they all these days? What with all the video games and the internet, they got it all handed to them, these kids. I tell you.
Yeah.
All right. So question for each of you. We'll start with you, CJ. What statement or comment or otherwise random thing you said wound up generating the most post-episode discussion, right? And I don't even mean controversial or not, but like, has there been some things that you've said that have actually, again, generated
really going to give Phil all
this?
this time to come up with something to say here?
That's the move. That's what you do.
I don't know. I think the good thing about doing a podcast is that nobody remembers what you said 2 minutes after you said it.
Least of all us.
Yeah, really.
Least of all us, exactly. So it's not like anything is getting picked up by any news outlets that we said, oh, this person said this.
I mean, even in the community, right? Like, are there some game discussions or, I don't want to say the word review, but like, because the Player One podcast community is fantastic. There's a lot of people that participate in the forums and the Discord, and relatively. Go ahead, Phil.
Oh no! One thing that really got a lot of our listeners talking was when we did the game club for Bully.
Oh yeah, actually that
was our listeners had demanded it for years. They paid money to get it. True. And I think when we finally got around to releasing it, it was huge. So many people got back into that
Bigger
game.
than Jesus.
There's so much discussion,
and that surprise twist at the end of that podcast episode was just great.
It was really, really exciting. And thank you, CJ, for bringing that all together.
I feel like deleting it right after it was published was a genius move.
Forever to be lost.
Yeah, lost episode.
The blessed few got to experience.
Yeah. Maybe there's a torrent out there or something. I don't know. Good luck.
I doubt it. We scoured the internet clean.
Good luck finding it.
Yeah. What was the? We said GoldenEye wasn't good, didn't we?
Because it wasn't.
It wasn't a good game. People got on us for that. And there were a couple other things.
Well, I think
there's the infamous, small time podcast affair. I'm not sure if your lawyers are going to allow us to discuss that freely or not, but there was.
Oh, you mean our settlement with Gaming Steve?
Exactly. Yes.
Oh yeah.
I think he's on episode 604 though.
That guy, Gaming Steve, is very intimidating in person.
He's terrific. Yeah.
No, I'm referring to the Sonic was never good.
Oh,
that wasn't said on the podcast though. That was
not said.
No, we started that fight on Twitter.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you one thing that constantly comes up. And I mean, this is more recent, but somebody in the chat here said anything Ethan said, which is pretty true. Was the quality of life thing. Still bring up quality of life. It's like a meme for the show at this point.
I hear it on almost every podcast I listen to. Every gaming podcast.
So clearly they're all listeners of ours.
When they say, exactly. When they say quality of life, I immediately think about messaging you, Greg. Like,
this
other show said
to get my blood pressure up.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But I'm sure there were more through the year. We're in a gaming historian video. Somebody in the channel just said we're in a gaming historian video. That's weird.
That's
Phil,
very weird.
What have you said that's been controversial?
What have I said? Nothing I say is
oh man,
because everything I say is everyone loves everything I say.
But things that you have, that your impressions have taken on a life of their own outside the show too. I think.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I can't walk to work without people stopping me on the street. Do that Sam Raimi voice, man. And, you know, oh, let's hear your classic Bane voice, Phil. It's like it's constant. You know, I'm in line at the post office.
Yeah, huh?
You know, I'm at the grocery store, and I'm just, you know, I'm trying to buy some noodles. The people are like, "Come on, how would Bane buy noodles?" And then I got to do like a 10-minute shtick for them.
Yeah,
10 minutes.
Dance
That's a
monkey.
lot of material.
I have a solid 45 as Bane.
You have to.
So, you know, Scoop Fest this year is going to be outstanding. Let's just say that.
So Scoop Fest was your first live show.
Yes.
And
In front of a crowd. Yes.
in front of a crowd.
Right. Yes. First live show with a room full of people, some of who knew you, some of who didn't. You're doing
most
it again.
of whom didn't.
Most of whom did not. Yeah.
Right. You're doing it again this year, so you're signed up to go back.
Yes.
So what did you learn from doing that, and how is that going to help you for the next time? Sort of work in a room, so to speak, instead of merely working YouTube.
If you're going to eat 15 White Castles, don't do it right before recording.
Smart.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Did you enjoy it? Like when you were in front of the folks? I mean, was it more about, okay, let's do this, let's deliver it, or were you able to sort of relax and soak it in? Did it happen very quickly? Like, just, you know, what was that like for you, Phil?
Well, I'm a natural showman. So, you know, I've been you know, in and out of local theater since my my high school days. That's not accurate at all. But no, you know, it was a blast. It was great. You know, little nerve-wracking at first, but after you're up there on the stage for a couple 2-3 minutes, the crowd sort of goes away, and at least for me, and you're just kind of left with.
Then you're just up there explaining Legend of the Mystical Ninja.
Yeah, everyone needs to know.
40 minutes.
Everyone needs to know.
No.
But no, it was great. You know, it turned into, because you know, one of the things about being up on stage, and you know, this is not an uncommon thing. This is, you know, something that many people who've been on a stage point out, is that you can't really make out the audience.
No,
you know, it's just kind of a blur. You know, it's just kind of a, because you're lit, they're not. You don't really.
Phil was so lit.
Wow. Lots of things illegal.
Las Vegas.
Lots of things illegal. Lots of things illegal in Washington as well, it turns out. So I'm having a great time this episode so far.
Yeah. We did that episode. We talked about the Super Nintendo stuff in part because we thought we were in front of a crowd that didn't know who we were. Anyway, so let's do something general gaming that people can really get behind, and we can talk about Super Nintendo memories, and hopefully get a couple laughs or 3. And I think got 2.5 laughs. But it was fun. I'm an introvert, and I need a script, and I had an iPad in front of me with things to say on it. And yeah, I'd be a horrible stand-up comedian. I'm a horrible improviser. So
I mean, you've all done, I believe, I mean, I know, Greg, because you and I have been on panels at like PAX East and stuff. CJ, I'm sure you've been on at least 1 or 2 panels at conferences or things. And Phil, I don't know if you have.
No one invites me to talk anywhere.
Okay. But I mean, it's not, I would imagine it's somewhat similar to that, but also somewhat different, just because of, you know, it's the Player One podcast as opposed to a very specific topic and sort of going through a presentation.
Yeah, what I think it is too is we've known each other for so long at this point.
Way too long.
That you know, it's like it's getting up there with friends, so it's not as nerve-wracking as normal public speaking would be, you know.
Yeah, normal.
And we do the show every single week for 600 weeks, and we kind of if one of us starts to falter, the rest will pick them up like I'm doing right now. Right? Pick me up. Come on.
Well,
No,
Mike
this is great. You're doing
Phillips,
fine.
Mike Phillips was there, by the way. It was great to see Mike scowl at you all, which that was fantastic.
Normal resting face.
Yep. But it was great with him and with Ethan and, the after show stuff that you recorded. So everybody's looking forward to getting out there again. Greg, are you, what's your opinion on Vegas and sort of the live show again? I mean, it seemed like you enjoyed yourself. Is this something that you like to do, or is it sort of a little something that you might not be at the top of your list?
Oh, I love doing the live show. It was
Nice.
a great time. Scoop Fest was awesome. Vegas, I can take or leave, but I've never been a big fan of Vegas. Glad I went the first couple times, but I don't really find there's a whole lot to do there that I enjoy. But doing the show was great. I really loved that. And it's like CJ said. I mean, I've done a little bit of public speaking otherwise, and I hate it.
Really?
Abject terror.
Really?
Yeah, especially when you go up there by yourself, right? Now, and I think CJ can probably relate to this too. We both are in jobs where sometimes you have to do pitches and things like that to a room full of people that you don't necessarily know. And I mean, I get through them, but they generally scare the hell out of me. But no, being up there on stage with people that you know and love, who you're comfortable with and who you've done this show, hundreds of times with, it felt great. Not to mention the fact, like Phil said, you can't even see the audience anyway. So it's just sort of this big dark area out in front of you. Yeah.
Well, the show came out great. It was well done. So if there were any concerns going in, you guys nailed it. All right. So now is a great time in the episode where we can all just take, just pile on shots at the games media, right? Because, why not?
Why?
Right?
Did you invite Mike?
But I mean, look, all three of you came from the games media, as we know, right? When the show started, magazines were still a big deal. Gaming websites were gaining momentum. Fast forward to today, everything is live streaming. Magazines, for the most part, are gone. And, gaming websites have become whatever they have become. But all three of you guys are still in the business, just in different places, right? Instead of writing about games, you are either making them or producing them or representing them. So, like, how does that impact you? Does it impact you at all? Or do you have to come up with ways? I mean, CJ, with what you're doing with Adult Swim, and Greg, you're making games, and Phil, you at the name of the company that you're not allowed to say, even though you've said it multiple times. So that's good.
Digimon.
How does that impact you? Where I don't even know if you call it gaming media, just how people discover video games. How does that impact you today, and how different is it than it was when you started the show, CJ?
Oh God, very different. Like, even just personally, I don't read reviews anymore. Really, I might look at them, but I really, I have people I follow on Twitter that whose opinions I generally trust, and I watch Twitch streams, and that's how I get recommendations now. And when for work we're talking about doing different outreach or different marketing plans or looking at trailers and stuff, and since I subscribe to the PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo YouTube channels and watch a ton of trailers myself, like hopefully I bring a little bit of that to what we're doing. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a games journalist again, but I do love consuming the content that other people make, like Twitch streamers that put on an entertaining stream. I'm hugely impressed by, because I would not be able to sit there for 6 hours and play Sea of Thieves and be entertaining. I can sit there and play Sea of Thieves for 6 hours, but I can't be entertaining while doing it, right? And
that's true. Very true.
Also
people who do analysis videos, great example, the Game Explain guys on YouTube, they just do an amazing job dissecting Nintendo trailers, and I am in awe of that work that they do. And the games media, I miss magazines. I haven't bought a magazine in a long time.
Of any kind, I presume. Right?
Of any kind. The last one I bought was probably The Edge, that was the Sea of Thieves cover, because
Good Lord, man. Come on.
but
It's gonna be a line.
what?
Nothing. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, anyway, I almost prefer it how it is now because you're getting such diverse opinions from all different people, and the fact that I don't have to read a review to get an idea of what a game's like. I can load up YouTube and watch some Let's Play videos, or Giant Bomb's doing a quick look, or Game Informer's doing a new gameplay today video on something interesting. And like, there's just so much more content out there now than we were able to do in a monthly magazine, and I think that's great.
More in an hour than you can do in a monthly magazine.
It's so true. Yeah.
Yep. So, Greg, you're on the production side, I believe, of games, not on the marketing side, but I'm sure you have conversations. Like, it's for what you do professionally. What does that mean, and how does that impact what you're doing, or does it at all? Or would you still be doing the things the same way that you're doing them? That's somebody else's sort of issue.
Yeah, I kind of would be, because honestly, the company I work for, we make games, but we don't make games in the sort of core gamer space. We make a lot of games for really for preschoolers. So how games are covered nowadays doesn't affect us too much. Now, every now and then it does. It does seep into my work a little bit, and I do try to keep abreast of what's going on. But I echo what CJ said. I loved working in the games media. I don't think now I would love working in the games media. I don't, not because I don't like what they do. I feel like it's just such a different beast, and it's not something I'm interested in. Like when I was in my teens, that's all I wanted to do was work at a game magazine. I was, I thought it looked like a lot of fun. I would read multiple issues cover to cover every month, and just consume so much of that. And then when I actually got to do that, one of the greatest jobs I ever had. And I loved staying on top of that stuff. But now there's just so many voices out there, and I feel like the pro outlets are scrambling to find different ways to be relevant, and not necessarily sure they're successful at it. Not for lack of trying or lack of talent, but just because it's so hard to find a niche.
No one knows what's happening.
Where so much. There's so much great content just on YouTube alone. There's so much great content.
And how do you compete with free? How do you compete with free?
So good luck. But I'm glad I'm not part of it anymore. I really don't. I don't read a whole lot. I look for good features, and they are out there for sure. But from on the print side, I still get Retro Gamer magazine, because they do fantastic features on old video games. But yeah, it's definitely a different world. It doesn't really inform much of what I do anymore.
Yes, I find out about games pretty much by listening to the Player One podcast and talking to Pete and Mark on the Dodcast and Brian on the Press Row podcast. I mean, that and a few clicks on Twitter, and you can find out anything you want and watch anything. I mean, Phil, what do you look at, or do you even consume sort of any traditional video game media these days, or are you, if you do, where do you go, and how do you check things out?
I let CJ watch all the Twitch streams and watch all the videos on the outlets, and read whatever reviews he wants to read, and then I just wait for what he says, and then siphon my decisions based off that.
That's a smart move. It's not that different from how I do it.
Because there's the switch hat
again. The most unbiased,
clearly,
of the group.
Clearly,
yeah.
Oh my goodness, but I just I don't really listen, and we've talked about this on the show before. I don't listen to video game podcasts really. I'll listen to like back in my play that Kevin does, of course, and stuff like that. But I don't have much time to listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't have the interest to sit and watch Twitch streamers.
You got to make time. You got to make time for that.
I do you?
No, you don't. Don't listen to
do.
Sure you do.
Not normal.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't want to be the guy who pulls quality of life into a serious discussion here, but but
sure you do.
I think the lack of Twitch streaming in my life bumps up the quality. I have to say.
I mean, it is interesting, right? So the three of you have, in a lot of ways, very similar taste in games. You've obviously known each other, been friends for a lot longer than 11 years. Yet, CJ, you consume an extraordinary amount of video game podcasts and watch a lot of streams. Greg, I don't think you listen to a single gaming podcast. Phil, you just said you don't.
All right.
That's fascinating. CJ, why do you, I guess, listen to so much? And I don't mean this cynically, but like, do you just like, do you enjoy hearing a lot of different voices talk about things? Or because I listen to the show and DLC, those are the only two video game podcasts, podcasts I listen to. So what sort of drives you to listen to so much? Because you have, I think, 8 or 10 in your rotation, right? Something like that.
I do, and that's not counting the tech and comedy podcasts.
There you
go. How do I listen to so many? It's because I listen to them on 2.5x speed. Actually,
the main secret is not loving your family.
Yeah, never leaving your room.
Yeah. But I mean, I say that, but I mean, you do have very specific tastes, right? Like, as everyone knows, when you get on a game, you stay on it for 6 months. You discovered a Sea of Thieves podcast, right? I was very surprised that one existed. You discovered it, you promoted it, right?
Well, luckily, Captain Logan listened to our podcast too.
There you go. And you are on the Nintendo train regularly, so it's not like you sort of are venturing out into a lot of different areas. So I'm just, you listen to someone, not so much how, but like, do you hear about things you would not have otherwise heard of, or do you just like the different personalities that much? Like, do they sort of feed into the games that you're playing? Like, is it more about discovery, or just like, what is it? What kind of shows are these that you're listening to?
Well, most of the new shows that I pick up, like I look for shows that have a very similar format to our own, where it's like 3 or 4 people who are friends in real life most of the time and talk about video games, and not necessarily the same games that everybody else is talking about.
Right.
Like, I didn't want to hear Destiny 2 talk last fall. I don't want to hear God of War talk this year. Like, I don't want to hear talk about the games. I don't want to hear talk about the games that everybody is playing. I want to hear talk about the games that I should be playing, or that nobody is playing, or from people who have interesting perspectives, similar to the Fanboys Lunchcast, which is gone. I like that format of people just getting together and talking about the games that they're playing or enjoying, or the news headlines and whatnot. And it's not as easy to find some of those shows, but once you do, and once you click with the personalities on those shows, I think you stick with them for a long time. And I listen to some of the professional podcasts, and sometimes they have that rapport and sometimes they don't. And I listen for personalities that I like to listen to, that I think are funny or entertaining. And I grew up on talk radio. I think we may have talked about this when Sean Capri was on.
Yeah.
I grew up, my parents in Chicago listened to WGN radio in Chicago constantly, talk radio. And I just really enjoyed that format. Now I don't even really listen to any music anymore. It's all talk, either video game, technology, or comedy stuff. And
so what are the I know we've asked this before, but sort of right now, what are the video game podcasts that you're listening to on a regular basis?
Oh my God, I don't even know. I still listen to the CADcast, Cheap Ass Gamer podcast. I've been listening to those guys for a long time, since before we started this show. But I listen to Back in My Play. I listen to DLC, the Easy Allies podcast. I really like the Easy Allies shows in general, just because they're coming from a place of real enthusiasm for games. It's not just a job for them, which is a little different than a lot of professional shows. I listen to the Game Informer show. They're also just really fun to listen to. All of those guys have a really great perspective on games. I think I mentioned the Xbox Drive when Sean Capri was on, just because it's such an interesting concept for a show where he's driving to work and talking about Xbox games. 8-4 Play, still listen to them because all those guys are awesome. And I slogged through their Monster Hunter talk, even though I'm not playing Monster Hunter. Computer Game Show, talking about a show from the UK, the Computer Game Show podcast is great. And for similar reasons why I listen to other podcasts, they just have a great banter between them. So many, I listen to many shows, too many shows.
We're certainly not here to criticize what you choose to listen to, CJ. Hey, Greg.
Hi.
One of my favorite episodes of the last few years, and there are many, was where you and CJ interviewed, I believe his name is Blake Harris. I apologize for getting wrong. The author of Console Wars a few years ago. Excellent book. I finally read it late last year. Terrific book. You've had several episodes that have had sort of guests from the industry or authors or things like that. What's somebody you'd love to get on the show? You know, somebody that you think, you know, would a reasonable sort of a person.
Reasonable, so nobody too important because they wouldn't come on the show.
Well, I mean, you know, it's like, yes, not the sort of who would you have dinner with one if you had one opportunity question.
Right.
Somebody, you know, that you could probably even get on the show. You've sort of thought about it and would love to make it happen. Any sort of names come to mind?
Name somebody I think would be attainable and I think would be fascinating to talk to, just because he's got so much experience in this industry and is such a nice guy. It would be Victor Lucas.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
One of the nicest people in the games industry, and especially where we're talking about the press side, because that's where he's been forever.
Still there, right? I mean, doesn't
still
he
there?
Sort of
Still
run
his
his
Electric
own
Playground. Yeah, it's
thing?
all. I think it's all YouTube based now.
Pretty sure you're right.
But I mean, you know, he's just a really, like I said, a really likable, really stand up guy. I remember the first time I ever met him was when I was first starting out at Ziff Davis and happened to get on. I was going out. I went out west for some press junket and was on a bus with a bunch of other journalists. And Victor came in, and I'd never met him before in my life. And he walked right up and introduced himself. He knew my name because maybe he'd watched or followed Gaming Age. I have no idea. And we sat there and chatted, and like I immediately felt like I was chatting with an old friend, and not to have like any kind of interaction with him for years. But even then, like if I jump into say one of his streams or something like that, he just remembers people. He's just a really good guy all around. And I'm sure he has some fantastic stories to tell about all the time he spent in the industry. So I think he'd be a lot of fun to have on.
Phil, same question to you.
Would I like to have on this mess of a show? I don't know. I can't really think of anyone who is attainable that I'd want to have on. I don't know.
Brian Intar.
That's an easy one.
Who?
Fragile Eagle.
Which one's he?
Fragile Eagle.
Is he
Sporto.
Is he that? Is he the guy who made Doom? Is that guy? I'm gonna make you my bitch guy. Is that guy?
No.
Brian Intihar is a sweetheart. And
haven't we had him on the show?
I think we did when did we have him at the fall after the fall of One Up, or was he on? I don't know if he was on or not.
I thought we did an episode that was a bunch of PAX interviews.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, yeah, it might have been on during
he was
that.
working at Insomniac, and we had him on. I think.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I think we can claim first podcast with Brian Intar as a guest.
You mean besides Ziff Davis podcasts?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you exclude all the podcasts he's been on before,
I mean, you know,
first.
Yeah, go search the internet. You will find no podcast that is currently around that has Brian Intar as a guest.
But
That's a good one. I'm going to steal that one. Brian Intar.
There you go. Well done. You know, it brings up something very interesting though. Like you guys, when you first started working together, there was a tremendous amount of people that worked together over 3, 4, 5 years who have, and especially, you know, in the 11 and a half years since this show started, gone on to do a lot of different things, some in the industry, some outside the industry. You know, I think you, CJ, tweeted the picture of a bunch of the One Up folks at the most recent GDC, and it was in many ways, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of them, well, clearly everyone in the picture was still in the industry, wouldn't have been at GDC. But I mean, it's fascinating to see where all those different people have gone and done. What are some of the more people? What are some of the more interesting people that you have worked with, roles that you've seen them take on? Obviously, you mentioned Brian Hintar, who is the creative director of the new Spider-Man game. There's got to be a bunch of different people you sort of look at and so, wow, that's interesting that they went from working with me on this review to doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, it's interesting because as you said, everybody's sort of scattered to the wind, and there are people who I was talking to back in the magazine days that are still in the industry. And probably the biggest example of that is a guy who used to do PR for Crystal Dynamics back in the day. I don't know. I'm sure Greg and Phil will remember Steve Grohl.
Steve Grohl.
And Steve Grohl is still in the industry, and he went from Crystal Dynamics to working at EA. Now he's at Sony, and I work with him a lot because he's our account man. He's an account manager for indie games, and I work on indie games too.
When you say Crystal Dynamics, that's not what I associate Steve Grohl with. For me, it was EA.
Right. Yeah, he moved around after Crystal Dynamics, but that's amazing because I probably was, I don't know, 18 or 19 when Steve Grohl came into the office to show us Gex for PlayStation, something like that. And I'm still working with him on a near monthly basis for stuff. So yeah. But even the editors of EGM, like Dan Shu and Shane Bettenhausen, those guys are also at Sony. And then you have Chris Charla, who was at Next Generation. He's up at Microsoft. And you have people who were working at IGN who are now at Apple. And you just have all these things we end up working with different developers, and somehow I know everybody around. It's kind of amazing how big the industry is and also how small, because there are a lot of people who I tangentially know.
So friend of I think everybody's, Todd Zuniga, just released a book, for example.
Finally.
A fiction.
Writing a book since I met him. Right? 15 years ago.
I immediately thought of you guys when I saw that. Greg, you and I have talked a bunch of times at various points about some of the times that you and Todd were together. What are some of the folks that you sort of over the last 11 and a half years since you started the show, you sort of look at me like, oh yeah, I remember working with this person on that. Now look where they are. That's interesting. Or I didn't see that coming. Or in the case of Shane Bettenhausen, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, I think we all saw that coming.
Yeah.
Back on the One Up show. I think Todd is a great example. I mean, Todd was because Todd started at Ziff Davis just before I did. So it would have been like 1998, I think, is when he started there. And he and I were sort of the two newbies on Expert Gamer, and then started shifting around. I went to EGM and Todd went to OPM, Official PlayStation Magazine. And just writing was always a thing for him, and he always had big plans, big dreams. And then to see him finally get a book out there, and he's been doing the what's called literary deathmatch for forever. Yeah. And good for him. I mean, it seems to be successful. So but yeah, that's outside the industry for sure.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, there's any number of people. Like I always like to think of John Riccardi and Mark McDonald doing 8-4. I think that's a tremendous success story. I know Mark's moved on now, but yeah, tremendous success story. John kind of went over there and had a dream and did it for all intents and purposes. So and now they're extremely well known, and they work on some really cool projects. And yeah, I'm always super proud of those guys. Plus, for those two guys in particular, hold a special place in my heart because they're the two that sort of got me in at Ziff Davis and got my career started. Made a lot of contacts through the old VidGames IRC chat channel, which I know CJ, you were definitely a part of.
Yeah.
I don't know, Phil, if you were on that train or not, but that's another place that you can kind of trace a lot of people in the industry back to.
Yeah. Very true.
But yeah, kind of met those guys there, and then Mark gave me my first professional writing gig, and John gave me my first job at Ziff Davis. So those are probably the two that I think about.
Phil, anyone that you were working with back in the day, and you sort of see doing some things interesting over the last 11 years since the show started?
I only care about myself. I don't care about those other people. Anyone
the
else?
Truest words ever spoken.
People writing books, going on, making games. What Who cares? They're not me. Let them do what they want to do. No, you know who I actually am delighted for. Going back a while to kind of old school EGM Ziff Davis is our old pal Trickman Terry Minnick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Trickman, he was the guy at EGM way back in the old days who was the master of the tips and tricks section, doing all the secret codes and stuff like that. And he was let go from the magazine. I forget exactly when. Was it when? Because he was working on EGM2, or not EGM2, but Expert Gamer.
Yeah, wasn't it when we moved out west? Didn't that?
I'm trying to remember if it was when EGM2 or not, when Expert Gamer became Game Now, or if it was when they moved us all out to San Francisco. But at one of those 2 points, I forget exactly when it was. Terry was let go, unfortunately. But he he's always been a big fan of retro games and kind of the old arcade scene, and he owns an arcade now that actually I believe just had its 2-year anniversary out in the Chicago suburbs called Pixel Blast. And if you go to pixelblastarcade.com, you can learn more about his arcade. And it's him and a couple of the other like really old school EGM folks.
Like Paulo Jada.
Paulo Jada, that's right. Is running this arcade, and like I said, it's been open for 2 years now. It seems to be doing really well for him. So
I was thinking about Trickman the other day because I don't know if you've seen the documentary Man vs. Snake.
I have not. Is that like?
No, it's not porn.
Okay.
Because I knew that's where you go with that. It's it's a documentary about a guy who's trying to set the world record on an old game called Nibbler.
Yes,
old arcade game called Nibbler. Anyway, it's at one point he sits down because the game can take days to get a high score on. So he does the whole marathon thing. It's actually pretty interesting. I highly recommend it. I believe it's on Netflix right now, Man vs. Snake.
Okay.
Anyway, at one point, there's a bunch of people who kind of show up at his house and are sort of supporting him, and there's Trickman.
Oh,
on
nice.
screen. He's only on for just a second, and I think he says one thing, and I'm watching. It's like, that was Terry. I'm pretty sure that was. And I had to rewind it like 3 times.
When he shows up, does he say his famous catchphrase that Terry would always say? You remember the one? What was it?
Drink?
Yep, that's the one.
What was that?
I missed that. Yeah,
did not get that.
No. Anyway, he was there. He was at the.
That's pretty cool.
In that documentary. So, yeah.
Well, excellent. Well, what do you say we have a few tweets? Is this a good time for that, Mr. Johnston?
That sounds like a great idea.
Tweedledee, tweedledee, tweet, 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 tweet.
Alrighty, we have this one first from the famous Mr. Nelson. He says, just want to say thanks to CJ, Greg, and Phil for all the fun I had with my great re-listen of the show, which is an amazing accomplishment in of itself and was fantastic to follow on Twitter. Just spectacular Twitter theater.
Yeah. Mr. Nelson is the only person to hate himself so much that he forced himself to go back and listen to nearly 600 episodes of this.
He says, in addition to the thanks, he says, also, now that they've killed off 4 fourth chairs, what keeps the 3 of them going week after week for 11 years?
Haven't found someone to take over that we trust. Waiting for our kids to grow up and do that.
Yeah.
So we got another good 10 to 15 years of this.
I think a lot of it is habit.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if
What else am I going to do on Sunday night?
if we took a week off, we'd be like, hey, you know what? Having this Sunday night free thing, you can get a lot more.
Get a lot done.
Family time. So,
Yeah.
that's probably part of it.
Mine is blind nostalgia for those first like 25 episodes. Remembering how good they were and just that blind hope that maybe we can recapture some of that. We'll keep going. We'll see what we can do.
When we were doing the podcast with the SOCOM headset, that was a good time.
I actually want to be here.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Night Attack 09, our good friend, says congratulations on 600. Congratulations to everyone else for actually listening to 602. Can episode 601 be like Seward's first year-end wrap-up, but for every show instead? The famous year-end wrap-up. Do you remember that, Greg?
Oh my God, where I decided it was a good idea to go through month-to-month headlines.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
That was a bad idea.
That's how you end up with a 3-hour podcast.
Woo-wee. That was
At least it's not as bad. Kane and Rince did a year-end wrap-up for last year, and theirs is 11 hours long.
Nope.
11-hour podcast.
Nope.
We're saving the 599 episode wrap up. That's going to be our Scoop Fest show this year.
Yeah, everybody will have had to have listened to them to know what the hell's going on. I feel like that's going to be the best audience participation ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Up next, we have Z Miller, 1902. We were already sort of chatting about this. He says, congratulations on 600 episodes, gents. At what point do your kids take over and the show becomes Player 2 podcast? Now, there was, of course, the baby era of the show, which everybody knows, where every single week there was crying, usually 2, sometimes 3 different microphones crying spectacular. And
sometimes the kids showed up too.
Wow.
But what was great for me is that at that same time I had a young child as well. So like it was almost reassuring to know that I'm not the only one that would have at the most inopportune times, no matter how much planning you put into it, the door opening and the child screaming. So
yeah, learn to accept that pretty fast. Because I know when it first, being the first one who had kids on the show, the door was closed, and my wife at the time was like, don't let them in here, and we kind of gave up on that plan pretty quickly because just you can't control, you can't really control it. So I always loved the reactions that we got from the listeners, because you'd have like half the comments being like, oh my God, they always have the babies crying on. It's so annoying. It ruins the show. And then you'd have the other half like you just saying like, no, I totally get it. And it's what gives the show. I feel like I can relate to what's happening. And yeah, why not? We're all growing up, we all have families. So let's do it.
I have a question for Rich.
yes.
At any time during the baby era,
Yes.
when you were listening to the show as a listener, did you hear a baby crying and freak out and think that it might be yours?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's amazing.
More than
I
once.
heard a baby crying where I freaked out and hoped it was Rich's.
Like when you're listening to the radio in the car and like a commercial has a police siren or something on it, and you freak out and you're looking around for the cop that you think is chasing you, but it's actually just some ad or something.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, my son is 10 right now, right? So that's right in line with when
My daughter.
Yeah, I mean, right in that time frame, absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah, and it was in many ways again just so relatable. So now, actually, Phil Finn is, I don't know if regular is the right term, but certainly Phil is.
Well, we try to
no stranger to the Player One podcast.
we try to get him his fiber.
Yeah,
You want them to be regular.
Yeah.
it's best for everyone involved.
Yeah.
I mean, there was this phase he was going through where
Like scraping diamonds.
Oh,
he wasn't drinking enough juice, and Rich, I'm talking about poo.
I
Rich, I'm
You
talking
think?
about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Dookie.
yeah.
But what about
got fake food.
what about Finn now? What did he do?
So okay. I think that's probably best left for the next one at this point. All right. We have let's see here. We have Rambus Dunk. This is an actual sort of a not a 600 episode question, just a regular question. He says, Rambus Dunk, do you think there would be a market for abridged versions of long games? Seems like devs would or could broaden appeal a lot without a ton of extra work. Let me experience a version of The Witcher or Red Dead in 15 hours. Phil, I think at the top of the show, you basically begged for that exact thing.
That would be great if we can move the decimal point and knock that 15 hours down to 1.5.
Yeah.
That's a movie. You're talking about a movie.
That's basically what I want. I want Red Dead 2 as a feature length game.
You know what?
What
They should do, in all seriousness, and
What's
Rich,
that?
I know you're going to agree with this. Recently, what was it? Activision said that the next Call of Duty is not even going to have a campaign mode. Do you remember when EA released? What was their boxing series called?
Fight Night.
Fight Night. Do you remember that year that they
Absolutely.
released the story mode of
Yeah, I
Fight
do.
Night as a separate download that you could buy at a reduced rate? That was brilliant.
I
Yep.
forgot about that.
Brilliant. If
Yeah.
you're gonna have a game that has a multiplayer and a single player component, let players buy them separately
That would be cool.
or
Or-
together at regular price.
Or just have it be, like the Games Pass and just put a whole bunch of different stuff out there. Which
Yep.
is kind of like what I'm doing now. I mean, the number of games that I've bought has gone down dramatically since I've signed up for the Games Pass and EA Access because just with those alone, and then you throw PlayStation Plus on top of it, there's more than I could possibly ever play, and you can dabble and figure out what is worth it and what's not. There are games that I would not have played had it not been for Games Pass. Sea of Thieves is a great example. I would never have bought that, but having to be on the Games Pass is fantastic. So, on the other hand, I mean, I got to believe, like, you look at games now, they are asking for such a massive time commitment. It's almost like the abridged version of the game. To me, it's almost like, well, just go to YouTube and watch the cutscenes if you really just want to experience it, because the people who pay for the games are demanding extraordinary amounts of time for their money. It's quite a paradox.
No.
Sorry, go ahead.
Actually, I was gonna say, you remember, like, in the early days of the 360, when you chose easy mode, you used to not get the whole game. And I think Cuphead does this, actually. They don't give you the whole game on easy. But I actually like the fact that now when you play easy, you get the whole game, and they even trigger the achievements and trophies.
I was gonna say, yeah, like that God of War does that. Where when you're choosing easy, they kind of tell you, like, this is if you just really want to experience the story. If you don't want the combat to be too challenging, like, that's what this is for, and I'm all for that.
I am all for that. Yes, because that would add, like, higher difficulties would add about 15 hours on top of whatever.
Or grinding if you've got a game like The Witcher, the abridged version could just be that you tear through experience points faster or something. And another great thing that games now let you do is change the difficulty while you're playing. You don't have to start over. That's I don't know who started that trend and why that became a trend, but I love that.
Agreed. All right. P.O. Rowe says, do you think we will ever see digital copies of AAA games priced lower than shop prices? There seems to be very little upside to buying digital. Now, I'm in the CJ camp of buying digital. I've made the terrible mistake of buying an Xbox One X, which is awesome, and then buying physical copies of Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Forza. Getting up to change those 3 discs.
Oh, Rich.
It's almost a bridge too
far. Not all of us live in mansions, Rich. Not all of us have a 20-minute walk over to the console.
You pay a little more, but you have that convenience of not having to swap those discs.
Really a quality of life thing.
Really leaning towards Team CJ on this whole digital future thing. I'm a lot closer than I thought I would be. But
digital games will be cheaper once GameStop goes out of business.
Which is when? When is that, Greg?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's already kind of happened with PC games, right? Because PC games have no retail presence, so oftentimes
prices went down.
Lower price, and yeah, oftentimes you see the PC version be like $10 or $20 lower than the console versions. Like Overwatch on PC, I think is $40 and $60 on console, and it was like that at launch. Yeah, I think physical stores have to go away for that to happen. But for now, you pay a little more and you get the convenience of not having to swap the disc.
Also, the convenience of never being able to sell your old games.
Well, that's true, and I do wish that some of the platforms had a better return policy on things, because like God of War, I bought it and it makes me nauseous to play. Can't return it. Oh, no refund on that $60. That's just gone.
Aren't we going to see a subscription service soon though that'll get you everything day one?
I feel like that's kind of where we're going.
We're so close now. Like, I mean, with EA Access, basically you get all of the AAA games day early for 10 hours. And then if you want to play it more, you buy the rest of it. And, you know, I might do 2 or 3 of those, but I mean, even a 20% uptake is good. You know, Games Pass is now giving you all the Microsoft stuff day one. We can't be that far from where you don't even have to, like, Phil, it's a great point to sell your games, but at a certain point, if you're just on subscription service, there's no buying or selling going on. They're just there.
Yeah.
But it can't be piecemeal like that. You can't have like that. You need EA Access and you need Game Pass, and like I think it needs to be one per console to make it truly viable. That's just me, but.
Do you want something like that, Phil? Or does that sound like I could hear Ethan screaming right now about this? Right? Like,
no, the concept of a kind of a Netflix style subscription service, I think, is great.
That's what I want, but I feel like when I say that, people get angry.
The other thing that needs to happen is us old folks need to die out.
There's also that.
I mean, my kids live in a service games world. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it's that way. I mean, you know, I tell people all the time, you know, it's so strange. My son has grown up in the world where if he wants to watch SpongeBob, he holds up the remote, he says SpongeBob, and then instantly every SpongeBob episode ever appears on the TV.
Yep.
There's no going back from that.
We're getting there.
Going back.
But you got to think also, like Fortnite, which is the biggest game in the world, does not have a physical version that you can buy on shelves now. You could. They actually did the early access thing. You could buy a Founders Pack version last fall before they added Battle Royale. But now you go into a store, you go into Target or whatever looking for Fortnite, it's not there.
Yep, that's exactly what I mean.
Phil, this one is for you from Lord Wampus. Who would win in a fight, Sam Raimi or Bane?
I'm a lover, not a fighter.
Hang on, I got to check my email.
Okie dokie. We'll see you later, buddy. Why would I want to start a fight with that fellow? He's a brute.
All right.
That's great.
I'll give you a chance to say something controversial to get some people, some blood boiling.
I'll tell you which minorities that I don't like.
Leroy Reichel 1. Do you think VR is going to get more support or is it dead? Which is it? CJ,
which is it? I think it's going to stay in the middle. Really, like
be sure to pick up virtual reality today for PS4.
Let me tell you the good thing about PSVR. The fantastic thing about PSVR is the price, right? I mean, and the fact that you don't have to dedicate an entire room to it, right? Because the Vive and to a certain extent the Oculus need larger spaces. Right. PSVR you can do in a relatively small space. And the problem with good VR right now, like I'm talking about the Vive or the Vive Pro, is you need all that space and you need somewhere to put the lighthouses that sense everything. And there's a lot of cables involved. And it's VR is awesome, but it's just the amount of room you need and the cables and the price. It's like too many things that will keep it a niche product for now. I hope that it becomes mainstream? Absolutely. I think it'd be awesome. I think we're sort of getting to that point with like Oculus Go and PlayStation VR. If Sony sticks with PSVR and does revisions, which they already did one, which is great. If they keep iterating on that for PlayStation 5 and whatnot, I think more people will get exposed to it and it'll stick around. But for now, it's going to remain kind of like a little offshoot. It's like mostly little experimental games and things like that. We don't have like big AAA experiences, whatever that means, on VR. But it's going to stick around for a while. And eventually, I think there will be a killer app that gets everybody involved with it. It'll be a headset with no wires and nothing that you have to put around your house or dedicate a full room to be successful.
Phil, you are staunchly anti-VR. Is that correct?
I have no interest in VR. I don't see it catching on any in the foreseeable future. I just don't think the tech is there yet to make it any more than a novelty.
Have you played with a Vive?
I have not. I've just played with the PlayStation VR.
The Vive really made me a believer in the tech. Like once this gets to the point where there are no wires and I don't need the lighthouses in a full room in my house dedicated to this thing, it's going to be cool.
Now, when there's a Pokemon VR title, then yes, I will suddenly be a staunch believer in it.
Meanwhile, Greg, you are a VR supporter. You are a VR owner. Where are you on VR right now?
I think. What are you wearing, CJ?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I like that hat, personally. Wait. First of all, is that officially licensed?
No comment.
I may have problems with that hat.
I think VR in its current form, I don't think it's gonna get a lot bigger now. I think you're gonna see stuff like Vive and that sort of thing are going to be more installation situations where you'll go to like a VR arcade or something like that to really experience those. Or, you know, if you're one of the people who has the room and the money, sure, why not? But it'll never be mass market. I think the Oculus Go and also there's the stuff you can do with your phones. There's way more potential there because, hey, everybody has a smartphone now. There are very few people walking around without one. Brings the price way down. No wires. It's all self-contained. You know, like even with my PlayStation VR to hook it up, it's not a hassle, but it's enough work that it's not something that I just pick up and play with. I need to sort of plan to want to play on the PlayStation VR. But
it's harder every day to do that kind of planning.
But it had the revision 2 that they did has gotten better with that.
A tiny bit because the headphones are But anyway, with like something like an Oculus Go, it's small and it's easy to store, and you literally just pull it over your head and you're good to go, right? But the fidelity of the experience isn't quite as high. But I think that mixed with whenever we start getting some killer apps from the social media angle, and also the travel industry,
and
I think those are going to be the killer apps. Yeah, I mean gaming, sure, there'll be a killer app for gaming, but I think as far as mass market VR, the killer apps are going to come from those areas, not from games.
Yeah.
All right. We have this one from Scoop Jessica. Favorite mobile games at the moment? Usually not a mobile games player, but I just got a new Android, so I'm open to suggestions. CJ, you are the mobile game master of the show.
Yeah. I'm playing Words with Friends against Sean Smith and Seabake.
Such an old lady.
I know. Let's see. Oh, Part-Time UFO.
That was my answer. Part-Time UFO is outstanding.
That is very true. I don't know if I think it's out on Android.
It's on Google Play.
Yeah, that's Android. Yeah.
That's the game by HAL Labs, the makers of Kirby, and it is fun on the bun. So you should totally get that.
You should totally get that. I'm also playing Golf Clash. If you like head-to-head golf game, give that a shot. There's 2 recommendations.
I highly recommend. There's this game called Pokemon Go.
Oh,
which is great. It's
kind of a
pretty
phenomenon,
fantastic.
really.
Yeah, it's you'd be foolish not to play it.
I will say, and this is going back several years, but if you have not played Monument Valley is one of my favorite games I've ever played on a mobile device. In fact, it is my favorite game I've ever played on a mobile device. So if you haven't tried Monument Valley, go get that. I know there was a second one, which I actually never have played, but I presume it's probably good too. But the original one is fantastic and will not take a long time, and you can play in 5 or 10 minute sessions and make progress. Greg, do you have anything to toss in for the mobile game space? I know you're not much of a mobile game player.
If you're on Facebook, go to the Messenger app and check out the games. Facebook Instant Games.
Oh, and by the way, play Pocket Morty's Amateur Surgeon 4. What about Unicorn Attack? All the games from the fine people at Adult Swim Games.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think that is going to bring it into the main part of the show. Before I toss it over to the one true host, CJ, to close it out, and then the rest of the crew to do what they do so well, I just want to say on behalf of everybody in the Player One podcast community, thank you guys. We appreciate you doing this show every week. We appreciate your authenticity, and we appreciate the respect that you have for your listeners. That means a lot. And thank you for doing 600 episodes. And please just keep on going, because once you guys stop, it's just a wasteland out there. There's just nothing left.
Well, really. That's true.
Ouch.
I disagree with that. There are plenty of good shows,
of course,
but we'll keep doing it, I guess, as long as people keep listening.
Well, thank you guys very much. Congratulations on 600 episodes. It's an amazing accomplishment. You guys are the best show on the internet. Thank you, and keep on doing it.
Oh, shucks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
Mr. Johnston, I turn the reins back to you, sir.
Alrighty, and that is our show for this week. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to comment on something you heard, or perhaps ask us a question, you can direct that to @P1 Podcast on the Twitters, or you can go to our internet website at player1podcast.com. There you'll find our contact information. You'll find blog entries about Sega CD stuff from Mr. Greg Seward.
I got to start working on those again.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or I got to stop saying that part of the episode. Either one. You'll find Generation 16 episodes.
I got all the footage recorded and all the audio recorded for the next episode, so it should start coming together quickly now.
Oh, man.
Excellent. You'll find show notes and links to all the stuff that we talked about, except for this show where we just talked about ourselves for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
We'll find something to link to. I'm sure there's some stuff we'll throw in there. And hey, on our Twitter profile, there's a link to a Discord chat channel thing, server, whatever, what have you. If you want to chat with us and our other listeners in real time, just click that link, join us on Discord, and talk about, I don't know, video games, movies, life, things, stuff, etc. Or if you're old school, we also have a message board where you can discuss this episode with us and our other listeners.
If you'd like to subscribe to the Player One Podcast, you can do so by visiting player1podcast.com or by CJ's wearing a beautiful tiara.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Or by loading up Apple's podcast app. You can also head over to the Apple App Store and drop $1.99.
Cheap.
Player One Podcast iPhone application gives you one touch communication with us via the emails, the Twitters, what have you. Also have all of our episodes ready to stream here to your listen device. And hey, Android cell phone telephone users, and the Player One Podcast iPhone application is available for your listen device as well for that same $1.99.
Also cheap.
You can find that right over there at the Amazon Android Marketplace. For us on Stitcher Radio, you can like us on Facebook. You can check out live shows and archives of our shows on the youtubes.com/P1 Podcasts. And if you'd like what you've heard, and how could you can head over to patreon.com/P1 Podcast. There are a few shekels our way. It keeps CJ swimming in novelty hats.
You keep
Unlicensed.
referencing that I'm wearing hats, but I haven't put a single one on this entire show.
Unlicensed novelty hats.
Yeah.
True.
CJ
This one says Happy New Year. Yeah.
CJ will be heading to the local flea markets, picking up all the bootleg hats he can. Chronic the Hemp Hog, Rastafarian Bart Simpson.
Don't have a cow on.
Exactly.
He's actually put
And-
one of them on.
He's got what is he? He's got
It's eco.
an eco hat.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's a Pac-Man hat. It's a
Looks like an
Pac-Man
eco
hat.
hat. There we go.
From a distance, it looks like it says eco, CJ.
Well, it does not.
No, it just has Pac-Man.
Hmm.
And if you have a couple bucks left over, head over to generation-16.com where you will find the Patreon link to help support Greg Stewart, outstanding web video vlog series of the world famous influencer Greg Stewart about North America's favorite, a banana, the Sega Genesis.
Thanks, Phil. And also, Tuesday and Thursday nights, 9:30 p.m. Eastern, I stream at twitch.tv/Stewart. Please stop by.
Sure, it's
little
optional.
community- a nice little community building there.
There you go.
Got to do it. Got to keep doing it. And that's how you build it up.
Mega Man Wily Wars this Tuesday, Phil.
Ooh, the Mega Man, the Wily Wars.
The Tuesday nights have been becoming Mega Mans. Yeah, I realize that's not the actual name, but well, I guess it is.
Which one?
Yeah, here it was
What?
released as Mega Man: The Wily Wars.
Mega Man: The Wily Wars in the U.S. and Europe.
Yeah, Tuesdays have been turning into Mega Man nights, and I've finished Mega Man's 1 through 6 now. So we're gonna
Nice.
jump into the Genesis games before I go on to that god awful Super Nintendo game.
Rockman Mega World
Mhm.
in Japan. Well, I look forward to that, Greg. CJ,
Yeah.
thank you so much for 600 episodes of fun.
Thank you, Phil, for 582 of
Patronize
those
me. I don't.
you joined us for.
You didn't even want me on the show ever in the first place. I was clearly a secondary thought. It was kind of like
More like
a
third.
pity.
Greg Ford wasn't available yet.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I can't blame you for that. Gregory,
Yo,
thank you so much for whatever that is.
thank you, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. I thank me as well. And of course, super extra special EX plus alpha thanks to the host with the most, the guy who roasts the most toast, the guy who boasts the most bloast, Rich Grisham.
Thank you. How about we get right back together here for number 700 when that happens?
Well,
Makes me feel
I'm-
old.
I'm the Rich. How do you feel about the devil? Because
We're doing a Doom retrospective in 666, right?
in 66 weeks, we got something big planned. And I dare say it's going to be a little devilish. I dare say
We could do a devilish retrospective.
we're going to have,
Don't
it's going
deal
to
with
be
the
a
devil.
hell of a time. I don't mind saying it's going to be a little Beelzebub buddies hanging out and getting down with the devil. I hope
But thank you for letting me crash your party, guys.
Well,
I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it. You guys
And
are the
Rich-
best.
Rich, tell the internet, of course, where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at Rich Grisham, and you could support myself and TJ Lauerman, that sports gamer, and Night Attack 09, Adam Burnett, by checking out Out of the Park Baseball 19 and Franchise Hockey Manager 4, 2 video games that we make. And I met those guys in part because of this Player One podcast community. So it just all keeps building on each other. So if they could go do that, that would be spectacular.
Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. I guess we'll see everyone next time.
Okay.
Next
What else-
time.
What else are we gonna do?
For the 601st episode.
Yeah.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Guys, I think we're taking next week off.
Maybe
Just
you
kidding.
The week after
are.
that.
You've been phoning it in for 500 weeks.
Alrighty. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Don't stop recording, Rich.
I'm not.
Don't stop recording.
I'm not.
I
Well, I was
will,
going to ask if I should start a new recording, but I'll just keep this one going.
I'll I stopped though, so that's cool.
Ah.
As long as Rich didn't, we're okay, right?
Bye, everybody.
Bye.